स्मरामि हृदि संस्फुरदात्मतत्त्वं सच्चित्सुखं परमहंसगतिं तुरीयं यत्स्वप्नजागरसुषुप्तमवेति नित्यं तद्ब्रह्म निष्कलमहं न च भूतसङ्गः। Atma Bodha, the knowledge of the Atma, the knowledge of the self. In the first verse, he gave the introduction. The subject matter, the adhikari who is qualified, what is the what is the subject matter, what is it, the phala that is aimed at, the sambandha, the connection between the subject matter and the result. The fourth one is the adhikari who is qualified to study this. And we went into elaborate details looking at the qualification. Who is the adhikari? We are not going to see that again. Just recapturing. We are not getting into the details again. So the adhikari is one who is qualified to study the book. Why he talks about the adhikari is because of two reasons. One is, if you have these qualifications, it is easy to absorb this knowledge. Number two, if you don't have these qualifications, you can aspire to develop these qualifications so that you can absorb this knowledge. If this is not your intention, you don't have to waste your time studying this book or coming to this class anymore. Yeah, these are the three things. Adhikari is very important because you can go on to your work, we can go on to our work. No, why unnecessarily you want to buy a cloth, you want to buy a dress, you need to go to that particular showroom. You can't go into a showroom where they sell ornaments and look for cloth. It means you are seeking something different. So if you are seeking something different, he's saying, understand this may not help you. This will not help you. So adhikari is saving your time, saving his time, saving. If you are interested, inspired by this knowledge, develop these qualifications so that the absorption becomes better. So this is the framework of the adhikaritvam, who is qualified. So one of the important introductions to Vedanta, as one of the classic traditional, the important introductions to Vedanta is this: the adhikaritvam, the vishaya, the phala, the sambandha. When you are fully qualified, or when you develop these qualifications, or when you are inspired by these qualifications, Atma Bodha becomes meaningful. Supposing, why it is very important to talk about it, because if you are searching for something else, this will not help you. That's what he's trying to say. If you are searching for something else, if you are searching for sir, and the Rahu Kedu Prayaschitta, what to do now? Nah, this will not help. For there is no such thing. So if you are looking for something like that, this is, you are not the adhikari for here. He is not saying this is superior or this is inferior. He is not saying that. He is only saying, if you are if you want to gain this qualifications you need. And the first 5 verses are talking about the how knowledge alone liberates. Unless we develop this conviction, knowledge alone liberates, study of Vedanta will not be of that much use. Don't try too many things, also Vedanta along with it. It will not work. There is one set of people who say, let us try everything, sir. Let us try a little bit of chanting. Let us try a little bit of rituals. Let us try a little bit of this. And also Saturday morning, 7:45 to 9 o'clock, come for class also. It will not work. That's what he is going to say. It will not work. For there is no combination here. It's laid out very clearly, where the knowledge of the self alone, when knowledge of the self alone liberates, other things are required for purification. Other things like karma yoga, the grihastha ashrama, so many activities are required for inner purification, so that you are qualified to receive this knowledge and go for moksha. The scheme you should remember. This formula you should remember very clearly. Unless you have unless this formula is very clear, unless you have developed the conviction on this formula, it becomes that much difficult to follow what he is going to say. When I say what he is going to say, means it's not only this text Atma Bodha, the entire Vedantic knowledge itself. So, knowledge alone liberates. Knowledge alone liberates. It means a few things has to be clarified from the beginning itself very clearly. A few words you need a clarity of. That is why introductory textbooks are very helpful. 2 days back, one of the persons from our class, from here only, they called me and said, sir, why are you doing only introductory textbooks? Why can't we do other textbooks, like, there are Upanishads are there. Why not we do Upanishads also? Why are you only doing this introductory textbooks only again and again and again? I said, I said, I know only this, so I can teach only what? It is not about the higher textbooks or anything. It is about a fundamental clarity is required. The higher textbooks don't give you logic and reason. Remember this. Introductory textbooks doesn't mean inferior textbook. The higher textbooks will not give logic and reason. They make statements, take it or leave it. They make statements, take it or leave it. Or you break your head, you do your homework, you come back and ask questions. That is the higher textbooks. When we say introductory textbook means that which gives a lot of logic and reason is an introductory textbook. Introductory textbook doesn't mean inferior textbook or kindergarten textbook. Introductory textbook means that which gives logic and reason to support whatever it says. The authoritative textbooks means the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutras, there will not be any logic and reason. They just keep making statement after statement after statement. Now, that reading will not be of much. That reading will not be of much help. Why that reading will not be of much help? Because we have not yet gotten clarity on the very fundamentals itself. What are the fundamentals? Three words you need to know very clearly. Three definitions has to be known very clearly. One is moksha, liberation. At least you need an academic theoretical clarity on this word moksha at least. Because everybody has their own definition of moksha, no? One is you need to know what moksha means. Second is what is the path to moksha? What are the preparations for moksha and what is the direct sadhanam for moksha? Second thing that is very important to know is the path. Otherwise, everybody comes and says there are many paths. In Kali Yuga, bhakti alone will, Nama Sankirtana, bhakti alone will take you. All this and all doesn't work. Another person will come and say there is no bhakti, there is no nothing. Just awareness is enough. Just be aware. I don't know what you will be aware of. You can't ask him that question also. But I will say just be aware. Watch your breathing in, going in, coming out. Be aware. Be aware. Another person will come and say, so there are so many methods that is prescribed and you really need to know the distinctions of everything. What is a preparation? What is the direct method? So first is you need a clarity on moksha. Second is you need a clarity on the path that is going to take there. The third is jnanam, knowledge. What knowledge means. Once you have a clarity on these things, then it becomes it's like knowing the basic formulas very clearly. Once you know these basic formulas, it is easy. Now we go back to these introductory textbooks again and again and again because they keep reinforcing these basics. They keep defining these words and they keep defining this again and again and again with the clarity. So what is moksha? Three words I said. One is you need to know what is moksha. What is moksha means? Liberation. Now what is liberation? Just English translation, that's all. What is moksha? Liberation. Now you are just using an English word. Now what is liberation? What is liberation? Liberation means letting go, letting go. Liberation means letting go. Liberation means detaching yourself. So two meanings to this word moksha. The Sanskrit word moksha has two roots. Two roots. One is you detach yourself from. Second is you let go of some. தமிழ்ல சொல்லணும்னா விடுறதுன்றது ஒண்ணு, விடுபடுறதுன்றது ஒண்ணு. This is what moksha is all about. So these two is what is called as moksha. And people have so many definitions of moksha. Everybody has their own definition of moksha. For some, moksha will be at 9 o'clock. When 9 o'clock comes, we attain moksha. From 7:45 to 9, you are the biggest torture. When we leave, when we move away from you, that is moksha. The general definition of moksha is no punarjanma. No more of this janma again and again and again is the more popular, common, the general way of saying moksha means no more punarjanma, no more of this birth, no more of this death, no more of the cycle of birth and death. The Sanskrit word moksha has two meanings. One is letting go. You let go of something. You detach yourself from something. What do you let go? And what do you detach yourself from? What do you let go? What do you detach yourself from? Now, all this is what we are going to discuss as in moksha part. Then comes, once you have a clarity on what moksha is, the definition of moksha, the definition of liberation, then comes what is the path that is going to take you there. Moksha in the highest sense, moksha in the highest sense is eternity, permanency. That's what moksha is all about. Moksha means eternity, moksha means permanency. You can call it moksha, you can call it Brahman, you can call it God, all are synonymous here. All you can use synonymously. So moksha means a eternity. Moksha means a permanency, as opposed to that which is temporary, impermanent. Moksha. Then comes the clarity on the path. What is the path that is going to take you to moksha? Then comes the third. What is known as jnanam? What is known as knowledge? Because here he says atma bodha, the knowledge of the self. What is knowledge? The definition of knowledge is this. Knowledge equals as it is. Seeing it as it is knowledge. This is the definition of knowledge. Knowledge means seeing it as it is. That is knowledge. Ignorance is not seeing it as it is, or seeing it in the way that you project or you want. So what is knowledge? Knowledge means as it is. And this knowledge has that which can be seen, conceived, felt. Knowledge. And then which is that which can't be seen, felt, and different from that. So two types of knowledge. Para, apara. Paravidya, aparavidya. Two kinds of knowledge. Vidya, jnanam and all I'm using very synonymously here. I'm not synonymously you can use. So one kind of knowledge is that which is perceivable, which you can feel it, which you can conceive of, which you can experience. There is anubhava. There are very many ways to gain this knowledge. All this is on one side. Distinct and different from that knowledge is Vedanta, the knowledge of the self. Why we say this is distinct and different from the knowledge of the self? Why this knowledge is distinct and different from all other knowledges? It is distinct and different because there is no instrument through which this knowledge can be known. Number one, there is no instrument through which it can be known. Number two, it is not a knowledge that is to be known. It is a knowledge, it is not knowledge that is to be known. This fundamental difference you need to know between all other knowledges and this knowledge. What is the difference between all other knowledges and this knowledge? All other knowledges have a pramanam of Pratyaksha, Upamana and others. There is an instrument of knowledge. There is a pramanam to knowledge, and then there is an instrument of knowledge. Gravity, the law of gravity is not a knowledge which you don't perceive through the eyes, but you understand it intellectually. Emotion is that which you don't see, but you feel and know. So something can be known through the senses, something can be known through the mind, something can be known through the buddhi, the intellect. So all these are one type of knowledge. Distinct and different from this knowledge is the knowledge of the self. Who talks, what talks about this knowledge? Vedanta talks about this knowledge. The Vedas, the Vedanta, the great masters talk about this knowledge. Therefore, what is the pramanam for this knowledge? What is the pramanam for this knowledge? The Shastras is the pramanam, Vedanta is the pramanam for this knowledge. So, these are the fundamental things that we need to have clarity on. The word, what moksha itself means, what liberation itself means, why moksha liberation means. The purpose of the study is that. If the purpose itself is not clear, then I may be searching for something in the wrong area. T-shirt வாங்குறதுக்கு பாட்டா ஷோரூம்ல போய் I cannot search for. That is why, sir, we have this modern day thing called a mall, where everything is available in one place. You go and do what you want. All that doesn't work. All those kind of things will not work. Yeah. Therefore, a few things is understood very clearly. What is moksha? What is the path to moksha? And then comes what is the word jnanam itself means. Why jnanam is why we are talking about it as a separate thing is because it is the knowledge. Only if you have the right knowledge, you can understand the path, which will take you, which will not take you. If you don't have the right knowledge, you will not know the path. That's why knowledge is very important, because only if you have the knowledge, you will know what is the path that will take you. Since people don't have this knowledge, they think a chivda of everything. You mix and match everything. A combination of everything will work, or do a little bit of it. It will not work that way. Why? Because it is knowledge that tells you what is moksha. Jnanam is cause and effect relationship. Jnanam is cause and effect relationship. That is jnanam, knowledge. Again I repeat. Jnanam means karana karya, sadhana sadhyam, cause and effect. In English it is known as the cause and the effect. The question is, for moksha, this is knowledge. For moksha, what is the cause and what is the effect? Moksha is an effect. What is the cause? Unless you have this clarity, you will be doing all the other things and you come and ask, why am I not liberated? People come and ask, I have done so many things, sir, but still I am not liberated. Why? Because looking for a t-shirt in the Bata showroom, you will not get it. Why? Because the fundamental clarity isn't there. The fundamental clarity itself isn't there. So what is knowledge means? Cause and effect. Cause and effect. Now, action, spiritual practices is the cause, and moksha, liberation, the effect. If you take this analysis, it is very satisfying. If you take this analysis, moksha, the spiritual practices, is the cause, liberation is the effect. It is very, but what the Shastra says in the book Vedanta Treatise, the very first sentence, that which you are seeking, you are already that. The traveler and the destination is one and the same. The traveler and the destination is one and the same. It means what has gone out. Are you able to follow? What has gone out? What we understand as in the ordinary sense of cause and effect relationship itself has taken a different turn here. Why? Spiritual practices is not the cause. Spiritual practice means action. Understand it. Spiritual practices means action, the variety of action. The spiritual practices is an action, and this action will give you, liberation. Vedanta comes and says, no, go back to introductory textbook. Go back to introductory textbooks again and again. Why you have to go back to introductory textbooks again and again is because, why you have to go back to introductory textbooks again and again? Because you have still not yet understood, at least even academically, at least even theoretically, the difference. What is it? Moksha means eternity. Moksha means permanency. Action means limited. A limited cause cannot produce an unlimited effect. A limited cause cannot produce an unlimited effect. A limited cause can produce only limited effect. You chant, you go to temple, you do social service activities, you do all this, which are actions. These limited actions will produce limited effect. It is illogical, or it is wild imagination to assume that a limited action can produce unlimited effect. It is not possible. A limited action cannot produce something which is unlimited. Therefore, what do you understand? Therefore, first thing that goes out is what? First thing that goes out is what path will take you to, what is it that will take you to moksha. So anything limited cannot give you the unlimited result, means action, any type of action cannot give you moksha. If any type of action cannot give you moksha, then what will give you moksha? Knowledge alone gives moksha. establishing it in a very, very simple way. If you are seeking that which is unlimited, if the effect has to be unlimited, the cause also has to be unlimited. Are you okay till now? But then what do you understand in life? What do you understand in life? Everything, all that is associated with life is, all that is associated with life is limited. All that is associated with life is limited. The senses are limited. The mind is limited. The intellect is the intellect is limited. So all that which is a product of this limitation, all the limited combined cannot give you that which is unlimited. Then what is the purpose of talking about all this? Sir, idu munnade sollindella and titiksha, values, practice, adu idella potu 4 weeks we were breaking our head for all that. Then why? Then why all that? All that is a preparatory practices. All that is a preparatory practices to gain jnanam, and jnanam is the direct means for liberation. That's what he says. All actions are a preparation to gain knowledge. That is where Vedanta comes and says actions is for chitta shuddhi. Chitta shuddhi. Yeah, again I repeat. Actions is for chitta shuddhi. Chitta shuddhi means inner purification. Once you do these actions and you gain this inner purification, you are qualified for knowledge and moksha happens. So you need to be very clear in understanding the preparatory practices are not the direct method. Preparatory practices is like first aid. Preparatory practices is like first aid. You need to take the first aid first and then go to the main cure. Sometimes the main cure you know, but you will not be ready for that main cure. Just as surgery is the cure, but if your body is not ready for surgery, you have to spend some time preparing yourself to a preparation for surgery. So actions and all practices is like a preparation for surgery, and surgery is the cure. Now these are basic concepts which you should be very clear about. These are fundamental concepts which you should be very clear about. How do we say actions don't give permanency? How do you say that? For everything there is a for everything they have analyzed and they have said. How do you say actions? Actions means a few things. Action means a few. What is a few? Through action, what all possible? Through action, you can produce that which is not there. So production is one action, like a farmer producing a crop. Production. Second thing about action is you don't produce something new, but you modify it. You change it. The crop is produced. Milk is modified to curd. Are you able to understand the difference? So the second thing is modification. The third thing, action, is purification. Purification is of two types. Purification means two types. Purification means removal of dirt, adding, addition of something. Purification means two: removal of dirt and addition of something. Now, removal of dirt as in shower, addition of something as in dressing table. That's why both will be next to each other, no? In the shower, dirt is removed. In the dressing table, what is done? Something is added. Fourth thing is, through action, you reach a place. Now, these are all actions. These are all that which happens through action. Now, you analyze from where to where you are going to moksha. You are not in a place. You can reach, you can travel and reach to a place. In relation to moksha, you cannot do that. Why? Because why? The very definition of Brahman, which is all pervading, the very definition of Brahman, which is all pervading, says it is not possible. Neither purification is possible. That is why we say, that is why whenever we talk about purification, we talk about Chitta Shuddhi, not Brahma Shuddhi. Yeah? We never talk about Brahma Shuddhi. We talk about Chitta Shuddhi. We talk about purification of the little self. It is always purification of the little self. For the true self, the Brahman is ever pure. Nirmalam. It is nirmalam, meaning there is no, it doesn't need any purification. Neither it can be produced, because what is the law of production? What is the law of production? The law of production means deterioration, disintegration. Anything that is produced will be, anything that is produced will disintegrate over a period of time. A rose flower, you keep in the morning, evening, it is gone. A mango, a banana will take maybe a week, 10 days. A marble stone will take hundreds of years maybe, but nevertheless, all that is produced, this is the law of production. All that is produced means all that has a date of production will necessarily have a date of expiry. So if moksha is produced means moksha will have an expiry date also. Again, then it doesn't make any sense chasing moksha. Therefore, actions, any type of, I spoke about production, I spoke about purification, I spoke about attainment. Travel means attainment, reaching somewhere, attaining something. Modification, neither is it a modification, like how the gold is modified into an ornament, how the clay is modified into a pot. Similarly, the ego doesn't modify to become Brahman. Now, this is what moksha means. This is what Brahman is. This is what knowledge means. Once we have clarity on these three words, it becomes easy to follow. Now, since as we have so many doubts about these three words, each and every verse he will explain one thing. It's not that all these samshayas that we have, he addresses. Supposing if we don't have any samshaya, because of the limitation of our thinking, he himself will project a samshaya, he himself will project a question, and he will answer that. Sometimes we will have a question, we get an answer. Sometimes we don't have any question at all, because everybody has a limitation to penetrate. And what he does, if all that is exhausted, what the Shastras do, they themselves will start posing question after question after question and answering till all your doubts get clarified. When all your doubts get clarified, that is the time where you say you have knowledge. What is the knowledge? What is the knowledge? What is moksha? What is the path to moksha? And what are the preparatory stages for moksha? This is jnana. Again I repeat, jnana means what is moksha? What are all the preparatory steps for moksha? And what is the direct path for moksha? You get a clarity on all these things. You have what is known as knowledge. And he says, this knowledge liberates. So whenever they talk about knowledge, what they mean by knowledge liberating is this. This knowledge liberates. With this introduction, I move into verse number 2. In the very first session we saw verses 1 to 5 is going to talk about how knowledge alone liberates. How knowledge alone liberates. But sir, what about Bhakti Yoga, sir? What about Hatha Yoga, sir? What about Karma Yoga, sir? All that is addressing. What about all that? All that is a preparation for Chitta Shuddhi, inner purification. In that purified self, knowledge will be seen as it is. So we move into verse number 2. Verse number 2 reads, I'm reading verse number 2. Bodhonya sadhane byogi sakshan mokshaika sadhanam pakasya vakniva jnanam bina moksho na siddhyati. Extremely categorical he is. Bodhonya sadhane byogi sakshan mokshaika sadhanam pakasya vakniva jnanam bina moksho na siddhyati. Of all spiritual disciplines, knowledge of self is verily the direct means for liberation as fire for cooking. Liberation cannot be attained without knowledge of self. From verse number 2 onwards, each and every verse will have one simile. That's why Atma Bodha is known as a book of similes, because each and every verse he gives one example. The example that he is starting with in verse number 2 is Pakasya Vakhnivat Jnanam. Pakasya means for cooking. Vakhni means fire. For cooking, fire is the direct means for cooking, and all other is a preparation for cooking. So, two things. One is the preparation, another is the actual, the direct. So, buying the vegetables, washing the vegetables, cleaning the vegetables, cleaning the knife that is going to cut the vegetables, All this is a preparatory practice for cooking. And my aunt always, one of my aunt in my house, she's now here. She's here also now. She say the preparatory practice only takes so much of time. Actual cooking is done, master. The preparation. Now all this is the preparation, and what is it that cooks directly? It is the fire. That is the direct cause for cooking. The direct means for cooking is the fire. Rest of the things are preparatory practices for cooking. Similarly, of all spiritual disciplines, the very fact that he has said of all spiritual discipline means they say there are many spiritual disciplines. There are many spiritual disciplines. Of the many spiritual disciplines, knowledge alone is bodhonya sadhanebhyogi sakshan mokshaika sadhanam. Eka sadhanam for moksha. He is not saying knowledge also the means for liberation. He is saying knowledge only. People get very angry at this word only. They get very angry. How can you say that, sir? Only. How can Shankaracharya say only? Fire only is the direct means for cooking. You can argue and say, no, sir, why can't you say all that is also a preparation? It means we have not understood the concept. What moksha itself means. That is why we gave the introduction. That is why that introduction is essential. Pakasya vahni vat. Vat means like fire is for cooking. Knowledge of self is the direct means for liberation. Sir, direct means for liberation, if knowledge is the direct means for liberation, means we have so much of knowledge, but why are we not liberated? The first objection, the first difficulty we will have is, if knowledge is the means for liberation, I have so much of knowledge. If knowledge itself means liberation, I should have been liberated already by now. Why am I not yet liberated? You still feel you are a bandha. You still feel you are in bondage. You still feel you are limited. You still feel you are restricted. You still feel you are constricted because you are looking at the permanency through the glass of that which is limited. The identification, you are trying to look at the permanency through that which is limited. What is that which is limited? The body, the mind, the intellect is limited. So when I say I should be liberated already, now what are you identifying the word I with? Are you able to follow? If knowledge is the means for liberation, means I have so much of knowledge, sir. I should have been liberated already. No. I have been listening for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. Nothing is happening. And the Guru goes on saying, I am talking for 65 years, 70 years. Not a single person has understood what I am saying. And here I am sitting and teaching also. So, if knowledge is the direct means for liberation, I am having so much of knowledge, I should be liberated already. What is the answer for that? How do you understand that? You say you have knowledge, but you don't have. You say you have knowledge, but you don't have knowledge. Why? Because the I, you are equating it to, the I you are equating it to with the I, you are equating it to the limited instruments, and you are asking for through the limited instruments the permanence, which is not, which is highly illogical, because you add all the digits of mathematics that is known, million, billion, trillion, zillion, you add all the numbers put together, the answer will not be equals infinite. Can it? How much ever you know and you add, that remains beyond the purview of the limitation. Therefore, when you say, I have so much of knowledge, why am I not liberated? Vedanta will turn back and say, this is a fantastic assumption that you have knowledge already, because you don't have knowledge. What is the proof to say that you don't have knowledge? You are asking the wrong question. What is the wrong question? Through limited, you want to see that which is permanent. Number 2 is the limitation itself you are not able to let go of. Why? Because of long association with this. Long association, long identification with the instruments, you have become that instrument. So primary moksha is what? First stage in moksha is what? That which you have wrongly identified with, let go of. What is it that you have wrongly identified with? Long association with the body, you become the body. Long association with the mind, you become the mind. Long association with anything, you become that. Anything that you associate with, you become that. Anything that you associate with, you become that. Now that you have associated with the equipments a lot, you want to know the infinite through the finite, or you want your current status to be unchanged and yet want the finite also. Are you able to follow? You do not want to change your current status. What is their current status? What is one's current status? One's current status is ignorance and bondage. Now, I don't want to change this. I want to continue as I am. I will not let go of anything and also add moksha to me. How is it possible? Therefore, it means you don't even have the theoretical knowledge. If you don't even have the theoretical knowledge, what you need to do? Go back to knowledge. Clear? Calculus புரியலனா அதுக்கு முந்தின இருக்கிற basic equations ஆவது புரியணும். இல்லையா? Basic equation கூட புரியலனா a plus b whole square ஆவது புரியணும். a plus b whole square கூட புரியலனா where we need to go then? Bhaskar Shastri. அது கூட புரியலனா அப்புறம் எங்க போணும்? 2 in the mind, 2 in the fingers, and I have to start. 2 in the mind and 2 in the fingers. 2 in the mind, 2 in the fingers. How long to keep doing 2 in the mind and 2 in the fingers? I will be 2 in the mind and 2 in the fingers only, but the result that I want is infinite. He says it doesn't work that way. Of all spiritual disciplines means there are many spiritual disciplines. All other spiritual disciplines prepares you jnanam is the direct means for Jnanam is the direct means for liberation. Last thing that you need to understand is when we say knowledge is the direct means for liberation, he is not saying others are inferior. He is not saying the other spiritual disciplines are inferior. It is not inferior or superior. There are stages. Primary section is not an inferior section. You need to necessarily go through the primary section. But you can't get stuck in that primary section and aspire to be highly knowledgeable also. Are you able to follow? You need to necessarily go through the primary section, and going through primary section is not inferior or low, but to get stuck there is, to be stuck there is low. Children have this difficulty, no? Especially when they move from the lower kindergarten to the upper kindergarten, they will feel so difficult to go to that class because new teacher, no? They got so associated with that teacher, they will not want to leave that class and go to the next class. Yeah. Swati said, I will not go to UKG. She cried. She said, I will not go to UKG. Why? Because Malti Miss is not coming for UKG. I don't know, maybe some Janki Miss in UKG. I don't know who's at UKG. Malti Miss is not there in UKG. Therefore, I will not go to UKG. Permanently, you will be stuck at LKG only if you are stuck with Malti Miss. So, of all spiritual disciplines, Jnanam is the direct means for liberation. One of the beautiful verses. See, verses 2 and 3 gives the formula for thinking very clearly. Verses 2 and 3 gives the formula for thinking very clearly. And most of the people, most of the students who study, they always tend to ignore these introductory textbooks because they feel it is an inferior textbook. It is not an inferior textbook. It is that which explains the concepts clearly. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna straight away starts with Ashochanam Vashochastvam Prajnavadam Shabashase Gatasuna Gatashuscha Nanu Shochanti Panditaha Natvevaham Jatunasam Natvam Neme Janadipaha Achaivana Bhavishyamaha Sarve Vayamatah Param. Now, straight away in Bhagavad Gita, he starts with a very high knowledge. Even when he goes into the discussion of Karma Yoga and all that, he assumes that some basic preparation is already known. He starts like that. You go to the Upanishad, Isavasya Upanishad says, Isavasyamidam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena punjidam agrada kasya svidhanam kurvanneveha karmani. If you can't do that, do karma. Kurvanneveha karmani najijivishe. For 100 years, do. He doesn't say gain knowledge for 100 years. Do karma for 100 years. You go to the Upanishad like Kaivalya Upanishad. Kaivalya Upanishad says, Na karmana na prajaya danena tyage naike amrutatvamanushubhu. Na karmana na prajaya danena tyage naike amrutatvamanushubhu. So is that. In Kathopanishad, Yama puts out so many things in front of Nachiketas and asks Nachiketas, take all these. Moksha, I will talk to you later. Yama spread out so many things in front of Nachiketas. in Kathopanishad. And then he says, take all these Nachiketas. Don't ask about moksha. You keep all these. Answer my question about moksha. Now there we talk about it at a very high level. When I say very high level means these basic concepts are understood there. It's like sitting in an integration classroom in mathematics. Differential calculus, integral calculus. It is like sitting in a calculus room in mathematics. It means when you are sitting there, what is assumed? You know these fundamentals. What are the fundamentals? Verses 2 and 3. Verse number 2 says, knowledge is the direct means for liberation. Bodhonya sadhane yogi sakshan mokshaika sadhanam pakasya vakniva jnanam vina moksho na siddhyati is verse number 2. Verse number 3 is another formula. Verse number 3 is another formula. What is the formula? Verse number 3. I'm not going to take that now. Next class we will do verse number 3. Today the formula is knowledge is the direct means for liberation of all spiritual disciplines. Meaning is agreeing that there are many spiritual disciplines. Of all these spiritual disciplines, knowledge is the direct means for liberation. It means you need to know what liberation means. It means you need to know, if you know what liberation means, then you will know what will take you, what cannot take you. You need to know what moksha itself means, what Brahman itself means, what God itself means. One clarity. Then is if you know what that is with clarity, then you will know what will take you there. Then only you will know the sambandha, the cause and effect relationship. Otherwise, I will be doing something else and expect something else to happen. I will be doing something else and expect something else to happen, which will not happen. And then I'll come back and say, knowledge doesn't work. It's not the knowledge doesn't work. I have correlated it. I have correlated it wrongly. Bata showroom lo koi Mangal Sutra kudungon kekra madri. Mangal Sutra one, now you have to go to GRT. No. If you have to buy shoes, you have to go to Bata. You don't go at one place and ask for something else. You can do that. If you are doing that, what does it mean? If you are doing that, what does it mean? You don't have? It means you don't have knowledge. So, what are you seeking? Moksha is you are seeking. If moksha is what you are seeking, knowledge alone is the direct means. Just as cooking is fire is the direct means for cooking. All other are preparations. What are all other means? Karma yoga and bhakti yoga. Karma yoga and bhakti yoga combined is an preparation. And when we say combined preparation, for the 10th time I am saying today, it is not to say they are inferior. It is not to say they are lower, this is higher. It is not that. For moksha, this is it. If you have a different concept of moksha itself, then it is different. Supposing if you say, going to Vaikunta is moksha for me, then enga pono. If you say going to Kailash is moksha for me, Shivaloka is moksha for me. Na, you need to rework the very concept of moksha itself then. I want to go to Vaikunta, sir. How will Vedanta class help? Vedanta class will not help because first it will tell you that there is no such thing called Vaikunta only. When there is no such thing called Vaikunta only, how can you go there? When they say there is no such thing as Vaikunta means what? If you are asking for permanency, you will not get it there. And everybody has their own concept of moksha. One system says you have this impure body, and then there is the pure river. The pure river called Viraja Nadi, Viraja river. At the river, yeah, Ganges, Nile, Amazon, Brahmaputra, Mari, there is a river called Viraja. In that Viraja river, you have a bath. When you immerse yourself in that river, you go with an impure body. And when you come out, you will come out with the pure body, and that pure body you go to Vaikunta, or you go to Shivaloka, or you go to heaven. It doesn't matter, whatever. Now, what do you understand? Body itself means instruments. Body itself means that which is produced, and by the law, all that is produced will, by the law, all that has a date of a product will have a date of expiry. That is why even the avatar of Purushas like Rama and Krishna also has a date of birth, and they have a date of death. Because even though the Sharira means has a birth, and that which has a birth will have a death. Therefore, first thing is you need to know what moksha is. And second thing is, only if you know what moksha is, you will know what is the path that is going to take you to moksha, and what is the preparation, and what is the direct means, and what are the auxiliary preparatory steps. All this is what is known as jnanam. All this is what is known as jnanam. Now, we'll read the verse again. Bodhonya sadhane byogi sakshan mokshaika sadhanam vakasya vahnivat jnanam vina moksho nasiddhyati. Of all spiritual disciplines, knowledge of self is verily the direct means for liberation, as fire for cooking. Liberation cannot be attained without knowledge of the self. Or verse, or example. If you remember the example, you will remember the concept. To an extent where Atma Bodha is known as a book of Upamana Pramana Shastra. It is because it is through comparison. Upamana Pramana Shastra. Through comparison, logic and reason is employed through the method of comparison. The logic, reasoning, analysis is used through the method of comparison. One corollary that I wanted to add is this. The corollary is, in comparison, always compare that which is relevant. Do not bring in other factors. When you bring in the other factors, then comparison is not the right method of knowledge. In fact, comparison will confuse you more. That's why most of the people, when you give a comparison, they will take the irrelevant portion of the comparison and start arguing and discussing. So the corollary is this. in comparison, that one or two aspects. In all comparison, there will be only one part that will be compared, not many. Therefore, verse number 2, he says, knowledge alone is the direct means for liberation. With this, I take up a few, there are a few clarifications which I take up. See, why I am taking up clarifications at the end is because of this reason. Whoever has asked the question has to stay to listen to the answer. Whoever doesn't want this question can always, camera close pannittu you don't have to sit and listen to all the answers where the questions are not relevant to you. That is why I am taking up all the clarifications at the end. If you want to stay, you want to say, you can continue to stay, but don't say sir is extending the time. Sir is not time conscious. He's not sticking to the time. Don't say. I'm taking the clarifications at the end for this reason. The first clarification: when highest knowledge of Vedanta, why other rituals are required? Matangi, your question is already answered. The other rituals are required as a preparatory practice. It is required because it is a preparation. Why preparation is because the mind is not cooperating unless I purify the mind and the senses and all that. It is not cooperating for the purpose of gaining the knowledge. So all these rituals and all these are done for this purpose of preparation for knowledge. Bhaskar. As humans work fundamentally through the principle of knowledge and understanding, all other methods work effectively only if the fundamental is sound. Correct. The fundamentals has to be very clear. The fundamentals are not clear, we will have, our thinking will be very confused. When I say we'll be very confused means, we will be putting in effort in one direction, expecting the result to come from somewhere else. That is the confusion. What is the confusion? Effort will be done, sincere effort is done, but it's all done in a wrong area. When I say wrong area means that work in that area cannot give this result. So the fundamentals has to be very strong and clear. That's why every class, the first 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I spend on explaining one formula, one concept, so that we get the fundamentals, right. Very easy to quickly rush through the verses. One book after another book, we will be finishing. Number of books we have covered would be this much. Knowledge will not be. So what do? I take 2-3 books and I go through this thing again and again, so that we are strong in our fundamentals. Is it okay, Bhaskar? Yeah. Now, Sriram, if moksha is what you let go and what you detach from. Okay, that is the definition of moksha. I thought you can't detach from anything. If you direct your thoughts from the lower to the higher, the lower automatically drops off. So it is an effect. You can't practice detachment then. If so, then why do we try so hard to practice detachment? Correct. Very good clarification. Because we cannot detach anything. We can only get attached. We can't get detached. Is the formula. Now, the catch here is, for the mind to get attached, it needs to know a few things to get attached. What are the few things it needs to know to get attached? The first thing that the mind needs to know is, what is the benefit? For the mind to get attached, it will get attached only when a few things are fulfilled. What are the few things that the mind needs to get fulfilled, to get attached? What is the benefit? Prayojana. That is why we always talk about the prayojana first. Why? Because it is the benefit that will open up the mind and say, oh, benefit irka, appadina I will catch hold of this. But then it is all right from one angle. For me to get attached to the higher in that way, which is subtle by nature, which the mind, where the mind cannot see any direct benefit immediately. In any attachment to the higher, the benefits are not seen immediately. Since the benefits are not seen immediately, the mind will have a tendency to go back to the lower again and again. So whenever the mind goes back to the lower again and again, I pull myself up. This pulling myself up from not going back to the lower again is called detachment. So I need to practice both. Again, I repeat.
Oh, one question.
Yeah.
But I find, like you say, when you go for the higher, you will not, that effect won't happen immediately. But say when I sing with devotion, that effect seems to happen instantaneously, even if it's for a certain limited period of time, isn't it not? Correct. So that isn't that the reason I've always felt sometimes that bhakti is sometimes an easier, quicker path somehow, at least even for a limited period of time, to connect arthuk.
Yes, as you said rightly, it is quicker and it gives an instant relief, though for a temporary period.
Right.
But again, what I did, I was lacking in some knowledge. Because of me lacking in some knowledge, I went through that mental state of agitation, disturbance, that I needed a quicker relaxation from that. But that bhakti, that quicker relaxation that satisfies me, will not remove the disease. For after some time, it comes back again. Are you with me till now?
Yeah.
Now, when it comes back again, the same method will not work. Or after a period of time, I need to do something different from this to get that calmness again. Like, very few people, even in bhakti, very few people are like this. You go to a temple, first visit is very inspiring. Second visit, 50% of the inspiration is gone. Third visit, fourth visit, it has turned very mechanical. It means the person has to go to a new temple. The person has to go to a new temple, new things. Now, it means the variety is what is giving me a... So what knowledge comes and says, yes, it is giving you a benefit, but two things happens here. One is, it is temporary. Number two, that first aid is not removing that first aid that you have given to yourself is not going to remove the disease from the core. If the disease has to be removed from the core, knowledge has to be acquired. Knowledge has to be gained. That is why Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, all these are effective methods in giving a relief, a temporary relief. Now the question is, what knowledge I lacked that I got into this agitation first? How to ensure that I will not get into this again and again and again is the knowledge part. So it says, as you are doing this bhakti and all that, what you should remember? Solution is not going to come through that. Solution is going to come through knowledge only, is the distinction that we are trying to, is the distinction that he is making here. That's why I gave the example of the first aid and the actual treatment. Actual treatment is a long drawn process and all that, but first aid is that which gives a, now is first aid important or unimportant? It is very essential, but every day I can't keep doing first aid only, no. Every day I can't keep taking first aid treatment only every day. Therefore, the solution is karma and bhakti and all other auxiliary practices are auxiliary practices, preparatory steps.
I understand, Ravindran uncle. I think my second question is tied into this now that you've brought it to this stage, I feel.
Yes. Correct. The second question is this. The knowledge of the self is beyond the knowledge of cause and effect. Is it not? Yes. It is beyond the cause and effect. Correct. That has to be very clearly understood first. We can't say finite is the cause for infinite. Finite cannot be the cause for infinite. Correct. Then developing the intellect is also a purification act, is it not? Yes. Then the development of intellect is also a purification act. Yes. In a yes, he is dragging me into something. Huh? Cause and effect. Yeah. Finite, infinite. Correct. Then developing the intellect is also a purification act, is it not? Yes. Development of intellect is also a purification only. For intellect is not the cause for moksha. It's not that we are going to say intellect is going to give you moksha. If intellect is going to give us moksha means then we are falling under the same logical fallacy.
Correct.
For intellect is also limited and the intellect is also works within the purview of logic and reason. How can that give you that which is? So intellect is also not for moksha. Correct. So a person by developing his intellect is only purifying himself just like a person doing karma or bhakti. Is it not? Yes. Through the study, I become a person with refined intellect. Yes. But how do I liberate myself of this beautiful but limited equipment at the end? How do I liberate myself from this? Correct. If this is the case, then why should I become attached to this instrument through Jnana Marga? Rather, Bhakti is an easier route because my mind finds it easier to attach itself to the Lord through this route rather than analysis of cause and effect, wherein I find it easier to get egoistic. Rather, like Shabari, at least, I will become pure enough through this easier route of devotion to have Lord Rama within my grasp. Is it not? To answer all this in one sentence, for the mind to follow, to pursue something, it needs a conviction. The doubts will make the mind, will make the pursuit uncertain. Now, it is the intellect that can give, conviction. A Shabari, the great devotee, now Sri Ram is bringing the reference of Shabari, the great saint, where we all know the story of Shabari, no? When Rama came, each and every fruit she tested. And you know what she gave Rama? She didn't give any exotic fruit, she didn't give. You know what was the fruit that Shabari gave Rama? Ordinary wild fruit. Tamil சொல்லணும்னா இலந்த பழம். Hindi lo solnuna, what is it called in Hindi? Bela. Bera, Bela, I don't know, whatever that fruit is. Now, when she gave that fruit to Rama, what she did? Each and every fruit she, now how do you know whether it is the right one to give? So she, every fruit, she took a bite, and whatever was good, she gave it to Rama, and Rama ate that. Extraordinary symbol of devotion. Extraordinary symbol of devotion. It is extraordinary symbol of devotion. Now, that devotion is unswerving. That devotion doesn't have an element of doubt at all, because there is a powerful intellect that is backing it. That powerful intellect is unseen in her. To put it very simply, the roots are not seen, the flowers and the fruit is seen. When you see a strong tree, what do you see in a tree? The fruit, the flower, the fruit is seen. What is not seen? The roots are not seen.
Correct.
You see a tall building, the facade is seen, the beauty is seen. What is not seen? The foundation is not seen.
Correct.
What is foundation? Intellect is that foundation. Knowledge is that foundation. Since it is not seen, people tend to miss it, and they think directly I can have it. Now what we are misunderstanding is that strong tree is that visible strong tree is supported by the invisible
root.
And what is the root? Conviction is the root. Conviction is the root. What is the conviction? Rama will come one day. She was not agitated. She was not anxious. She was not worried. She is not stressed about all that. She knew Rama will come, and she was waiting for yugas for Rama to come. And when Rama come, she didn't ask, why are you so late? Why did you make me wait so long? None of that happens, because the conviction. A human being, to pursue anything in life, we need a conviction. And conviction is of the intellect. Conviction is not of the mind, because mind is that which is wavering. Mind is that which wavers. Mind is that which wavers. It is the intellect that has the conviction. Like Tyagaraja had the conviction. Nitichala Sukama. He is able to sing that, no? When everybody else came and said, why don't you go and sing in that? And his life was Unjavritti, no? The life of Tyagaraja was a beautiful life. What is that life? Unjavrittina, not begging. Unjavritti is not begging. Tyagaraja was not begging. You know what they do? When the farmer crops, 10% of the crop, he will leave it behind in the field. Like how the machine takes everything, he will not take. 10% of it is left behind. And that 10% is for whom? For the birds and for this Unjavritti fellow. So after the farmer has cropped, this fellow will go and sweep that field. Whatever the farmer has left behind, he brings that, he cooks that, and he lives life with that. That this is Unjavritti. Today Unjavritti na ultava they do. What they do? After having a full breakfast, yeah, nalla idli, sambar, pongal, after eating everything, they dress up like that and they go from house to house begging. That is mockery of this That's not Unjavritti only in the first place. Now, when a man was living life like this, poverty to the core, when the king of Tanjore invited him to sing, everybody said, why are you so adamant? Why can't you be liberal? Why are you being so rigid? Why can't you be liberal in life? What is being liberal in life means? One day you go and sing in the king's court. You will get enough. You will get enough money where you don't have to do this Unjavritti and all. You can sit at home in the comfort. You can come up with better songs, no? In the comfort, you can come up with better music, no? Huh? This is one logic. Intellect has a different logic. What is Tyagaraja's intellect said? Tyagaraja's intellect said what? Nitichala Sukama. Ramudu Sannadhi Sevaka Sukama. Singing there or singing here. Not both. So that Tyagaraja could not be shaken by anything at all. Why? Because there is no temptation. Are you able to follow now?
So all of
the mind doesn't get tempted. For a bhakta, he has a strong intellect. Therefore, he doesn't get tempted by anything. He doesn't get doubt about God when sorrow visits him. When pain visits him, he doesn't have a doubt about God also. When he sees coronavirus happening, he will not doubt God. Going to God asking, why are you cruel? Why are you doing this? He will not do any of these things. Why? Because he has a conviction. The only difference is he will have a conviction to himself, but he will not be able to explain it to another and help that person develop a conviction.
Correct.
He is not an inferior person, but he will not know how to give logic and reason and develop another to get a conviction. Now what Vedanta, Shankaracharya or all these great masters do is, they have the same conviction like Tyagaraja or Shabari. They have the same bhakti like Tyagaraja or Shabari. And the only difference is they come up with logic and reason so that we can develop this conviction also. For ultimately, what brings about a consistency in practice? Ultimately, what will bring about the mind not getting tempted or not being a doubting Thomas is a conviction which is of the intellect that comes through knowledge and understanding. Therefore, intellect, purifying the intellect and developing the intellect becomes a necessary evil. Why it is a necessary evil is because without it, there will be a lack of, without this intellect, there will be a lack of conviction. One is there will be a lack of conviction. Another is the mind itself can get tempted. The third is, out of this bhakti, I would expect a result of a protection. Out of bhakti, are you able to follow the third point? Out of bhakti, the person will expect a result of protection. So, if God says, I can't protect you, what will go out?
His faith.
The faith goes out. The bhakti goes out. It means what? So, the bhakti is there today, but it is so fragile. We are not saying bhakti is not there. We are not saying bhakti should not be there. What Shankaracharya is saying, it is there, but it is so fragile that one incident in life, one suffering or one sorrow in life, or one thing not going my way is enough to uproot me. Why? Because my faith has no conviction behind it. Now, for a faith to develop a conviction, intellect needs to be developed, strengthened, purified through knowledge and intellect. That is why I was so tempted to talk about this today, but I didn't say. What is the intellect also needs to be purified. What is the dirt of the intellect? When we say purified means intellect also has a dirt. No. What is the dirt of the intellect? The dirt of the intellect is the arrogance of I know.
No.
I know. The arrogance of I know is the dirt of intellect. That's where in the Subhashitani he says, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. How do you know that you have knowledge? Only when you have humility. So the dirt, there is the dirt to the body, there is the dirt to the mind, and there is the dirt to the intellect. Now, every instrument has a dirt that ought to be
cleansed.
That ought to be cleansed. Intellect also has a dirt in it. It's not that intellect by upon creation itself it is pure and all that. It is not. It also has a dirt. What is the dirt of the intellect? The dirt of the intellect is the arrogance of I know, and somehow use logic and reason to convince the other to my belief.
Correct.
Idella arrogance of the intellect. Somehow I have to convince the other. Why can't, if I am convinced, I need to stay quiet. No, why do I have to go on? Why do I have to go and confuse the whole lot also? Now, these are all the arrogance of, these are all the dirt of the intellect. And yet, we need to strengthen this intellect. Intellect is a necessary because minus the intellect, there cannot be a conviction. When there is no conviction, there will not be a consistency in my pursuit. A dedicated, consistent pursuit will not happen where conviction is not there. Therefore, intellect also has to be developed. But the karma, the bhakti yoga temporarily reduces the ego. Jnana yoga reduces the ego from the core.
Until now, I was under the assumption that during bhakti or when I sing something and I sing with a lot of love and I experience that emotion or that state, or not even emotion, I would say a state of joy or bliss. I thought every day I thought I was yearning for that band-aid, because I thought now I'm not in that state. So I every day want to sing or every day want to go back to that band-aid, because I feel that band-aid, it'll be so nice if I can constantly be in that band-aid situation. But that itself, now you have explained to me, is because of an intellect telling me that only if you're in that state continuously will you find joy.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So you're right. So unknowingly, you're right. A lot of people with bhakti or karma have unknowingly a sense of developed intellect that they cannot communicate in a way.
Yes, that is the only thing they do. See, they will not be able to communicate. That's all. The fact that they are not able to communicate doesn't mean they don't have an intellect. That's why I say this example of like a Tyagaraja or a Shabari or any great bhakta for that matter. The conviction with which they talk about the uncertainty of life, the conviction with which they talk about the unreality of life, they will not be able to give a logical explanation. They will not be able to give. Now, it is not their fault. They are not designed that way naturally. Just as one is to understand for oneself, another is to explain it to another. No.
Correct.
What these great masters like Shankaracharya or Ramatirtha or Swamiji, like masters like these great masters are distinct and different, as in they are able to explain also. The conviction part is one and the same. It's not that they are different. It is still one and the same. I give this example. All those who knows mathematics, who has understood mathematics, can't become mathematics teachers.
Correct.
Only a very few can teach. Sometimes the fellow will be teaching and he will score less marks. Yeah.
Correct.
Nala and the category. My father always says, that fellow, because they come home, I treated these and all that, mark varumbod. Why? Because of the sheer arrogance that I will overlook a few things. Because of the sheer arrogance that I know, I overlook a few things and I score less. That fellow is so attentive because of his sheer limitation. Yeah, that also I knew much later. My maths teacher said, because of your arrogance, you are not scoring. What is arrogance? You tend to overlook. Why? Because you
think you know
it. No. You follow? Then he says that is the dirt of the intellect.
So now I understand why in the olden days they caught them young.
Yes.
Because as you grow older, it is so easy. Now I know why they say it's like walking on a knife's edge. Because
Correct.
more often than not, this dirt of the intellect makes you arrogant, and you try
Yes.
the specious reasoning of convincing others and yourself and
Yes.
justifying anything and everything.
Correct.
So it becomes a bane rather than a boon when
Yes.
you develop it very late,
Exactly
when you
correct.
lack purity.
Exactly correct. That is why they caught so young, because the intellectual arrogance is not there then. There is a childlike trust. It also asks questions, but that questioning doesn't have that arrogance like the adult one. That is why
Doesn't have an ulterior
Shankaracharya,
motive.
that's why Shankaracharya, Krishna, they keeps on saying PhD in foolery, PhD in foolery, PhD in foolery is to cut that part. Is it okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. With this, we conclude for today. We continue next week again.